And yeah, I mean, we've been rolling on with this now since January. I'm surprised and pleased that you're still turning up. No doubt there are 101 things you could all be doing on a Wednesday evening, but you're turning up, and that's great. And it's good to have that connection with the practice. It's something that we've never done before in like the 15 years we've been teaching together. Myself and Siddhartha have always been very devoted to doing retreats and workshops and teacher trainings. We've never actually done together this sort of thing. So it's because of interest in doing it that we're doing it. It's because it's online and it's feasible as well. And to be honest, I've quite enjoyed it. I've been surprised at how much I enjoy being a regular yoga teacher again after many years of just sort of being involved in training and workshops and a bit more specialist stuff. So it's good to just, you know, be an everyday yoga teacher. It's good. It's good work. So tonight I'd like to go back over a number of sequences are set out that I like to work with. So we're going to go over the shoulder. And well, you're never separating out the shoulders alone anyway, are you? Just shoulders and thoracic area, the appendicular skeleton. And this practice, what I like people to do is get a feel for different practices and the effects that they have, because every practice that, and you're probably familiarizing yourself with your own practice now and getting a sense of this, how different kinds of practices have different effects. And sometimes those effects are quite subtle, sometimes they're really obvious. Yeah. The most obvious level should be really that the area of the body where you've worked, you should feel something different about that, hopefully, energetically. You should feel different in that part of the body, at least. And then look out for the subtler kind of manifestations as well of the practice and how it can vary. Like the past few sessions I've been doing quite strong standing work. And the last session with me the week before last was quite vigorous. And as I was saying in that session, it's more about, that kind of practice is more about the continuity of purpose throughout the practice, building up a strong concentration, not so much about the perfection of the alignment of the poses, but more about the connection between the poses. Okay. So that's a way you can emphasize your practice, is to focus much more on the connection between the work from beginning to end. And sort of not pausing too much, not breaking the concentration. That's just one way of working. Another way of working is to go more slowly, as we're going to do a bit more slow work tonight. Combination of sort of what looks like flowing practice and the more sustained static practice. Okay. And the reason that we're doing that sort of practice is going to work a bit more specifically in this area. Okay. So, you know, I'm sort of saying the obvious a little bit, but I like to just sort of talk a bit about the practice in general before I start. And I think it's good to really kind of emphasize different sorts of practices as you get more experience. You don't always do this practice because this is the way I practice, therefore I always have to practice like this every time. No, bring in variety to your practice. Sometimes more energetic, sometimes slower, sometimes a more yielding practice, sometimes more strengthening practice. It's good to vary your practice as much as you possibly can, to learn new things about how to practice. Yeah. So like we don't stop learning how to practice in a way that practice just goes on developing. And you refine your practice over the years. And that applies to teachers as well as non-teachers, as that we're all learning all the time, new ways to practice. Sometimes you have a breakthrough and a bit of a discovery. Sometimes you find it, you know, so-called alignment in the classical sense doesn't work that well for me. So you discover a new way of setting up the pose and you notice different effects, right? So it's about being ongoingly aware of that. Okay. So what I'd like to do first of all then, before we're going to do we're not going to leave the ground group 0 out. We're going to do some group 0 work lying on the floor. The first 3-4 poses will be like that. And I'll just lead you through gently. And then we're going to do some work from sitting and kneeling. We're only going to come to standing once this evening. Actually, we're not really going to emphasize standing. Done a lot of that. And then I was going to finish with shoulder stand, but now that I know that Saskia's in the middle of a field somewhere, and probably the rest of you haven't got blocks sorted out because I didn't think to mention it, we might not do that. We might do just an improvised inversion pose at the end. Okay. So why don't we just, wherever we are, just sit for a moment. Sit before we lie down. We will lie down in a moment. The lying down will be about going into a pose, not just resting. Okay. So just centering and grounding and letting the experience of the day, whatever that's been, slowly fade away. Right? So use the time of the yoga practice to simplify our experience as much as we can. Out of the complexity of our daily lives. And we'll just start off by calmly observing the body, first of all, knowing that the body is there where it is, taking some deeper breaths. Of course, I encourage diaphragmatic breathing as we do. You're free to explore that, free to pick it up, explore it, and let go of it. And just generally observe the breath, even if you're not breathing consciously diaphragmatically, just observing how the breath plays into the practice and how it affects the practice. Okay. But anyway, to start with, we'll take some deeper breaths consciously, deliberately, filling the base of the lungs, expanding the lower lobes of the lungs and the belly and the sides of the body. And the kidney area, sense of expansion. And as you breathe into that area, awareness comes into the area, aliveness, sense of presence. See, as on the exhalations, if you can allow yourself to let go mentally of whatever your mind has been following in the last part of this afternoon, before the session. Just letting your mind gather around what's going on right here, right now, in the practice. Nothing more to do than this, nothing more to think about for the time being. Just give yourself a break from involvement in this, that, and the other. Mentally, physically. So the yoga practice is always already taking place. Just this sitting and being aware is what yoga is really. It's about the mind and the awareness in mind. And then we're going to integrate this awareness into some moving practice, some asana work, to enliven the body, enliven the breath, concentrate the mind, not forcing anything to happen. So as the practice unfolds, usually unfolds through a sense of generating connection to pleasure, so enjoyment in the process. So awareness builds up gradually around that. Okay, so I'd like you to lie back down on the floor with the legs in semi-supine position, so the knees raised and the feet on the floor. I'm going to lie back, but you probably don't need to see me anyway for the first few poses. I'll just explain them. So you don't need to be looking at your screen necessarily. With the feet down on the floor, we're going to do a very simple practice that we often do from this position, which is Padam, or the bridge pose in movement. Okay, so it just involves pressing the feet down, having the feet, usually like to have the heels just underneath the knees, not too far away from the pelvis, keeping the knees centered so the knees not falling out to the side or into the center. Arms resting down by the side of the body on the floor with the palms resting down, arms straight. Just get a feel of the length of your spine from the base of the occipital ridge of the skull all the way down to the base of the coccyx. Just connect with that mentally. So movement follows mind awareness. Okay. And on the inhalation, we're going to connect the breath to these movements. So on the in-breath, likely to draw the pelvis upwards. So you're going to start by lifting the tailbone, lifting the pelvis. But the energy comes through the legs to lift, more than the buttocks. And as you draw the pelvis higher, take the arms all the way back onto the floor behind you, or the ground, keeping the hands as wide as your shoulders, palms facing up to the sky. Okay, so the arms go all the way back. And as we exhale, we come down. We might take 1 or 2 breaths whilst we're up there. Come all the way down, pressing the spine gently into the floor from the pelvis towards the pelvis from the thoracic. Okay, and once again on the inhale, lifting up, using the strength of the legs to press yourself up. Arms flowing back. Keep the movement very light, very soft. And on the exhale, once again, coming down. So the inhale lifts you up and the exhale brings you back down. You can just move dynamically at your own breath rate. Sense of lifting the pelvis through the strength of the legs and lifting the spine vertebra by vertebra, section of the spine at a time. And keeping the chin just lifted away slightly from the chest. So I like to encourage people to try and maintain the cervical curve whilst you do this kind of practice. So continuous movement with the breath. We'll do this another 8 times. Just the way we begin to align things in this group of postures we talk about is group 0, preparatory practice. The energy of the body, the awareness of the mind and the breath coming together in some kind of unified whole. That's what we're building up towards. Conscious and aware of what's going on in the body. Also our inner state. Our inner state as we find ourselves, bringing that onto the mat as well. So I've slightly lost count, but the next time you're going to come up, you're going to hold the pose in that position. I'd like you to hold it with the arms above the head on the floor, palms facing the sky. See if you can draw a little bit higher, keeping a space between the feet and the space between the knees. Grounding the 4 corners of the feet. Tailbone tucking up gently so that we're not overemphasizing engaging the buttocks. And without lowering the pelvis down, just let the arms come down by your side now, if you will. Palms down, keep the height, keep the lift. See if you can bring your shoulders underneath you a little bit more so that you come to a more classical form of the bridge pose. Engaging the hands together or not, it's up to you. So this brings the energy into the body very strongly, this particular pose. 3 more breaths. Opening the heart center. So the idea is to lift through the heart center. Lift up and lift towards the sky. And release down. First of all, rolling the thoracic down, lumbar back to the floor, pelvis down on the floor. Very good. Okay, from here now, pretty much the same base position. We're going to extend the arms above the head. And as we extend the arms above the head, we're going to lift both feet to the sky so that we come into an L shape. So the soles of the feet point up and the palms of the hands point up to the sky. The whole spine stays down on the floor. Okay. Exhaling, lowering the hands down, lowering the feet down. On the next in-breath, again, one smooth movement. Exhaling and extending the legs. And down. Okay. Movement of the arms moves at the same time as the legs, same rhythm. Reaching up. Lengthening through the heels a little once the feet are pointed upwards. Okay. So lengthening through the heels. Reaching out through the middle fingers of the hands. And we'll do this again 8 more times. Inhaling, exhaling. I'm just building up a little bit of tone and heat in the abdominal region. Nothing too dramatic, but it does the job of preparing the body for other practices. Okay, next time you elevate the legs to the vertical, keep the legs extended up, take the arms back onto the floor, palms of the hands facing up, just maintain the position for 8 breaths. Okay. So lifting up through the heels, so make this part of the practice active in terms of lifting, and extending through the arms, through the shoulder blades, through the inside and the outside edge of the legs, and the same with the arms, through the inside, outside edge of the arms as well, little finger, thumb side. Broadening the palms, lifting up. So trying to lift your pelvis off of the floor without lifting it off of the floor so that the legs are drawing upwards strongly. That's good. Okay, now spread your arms out to the side, sort of eagle, so that the arms are at the same height as the shoulders, but the palms of the hands on the floor. Bring the feet down onto the floor. Okay, lifting your pelvis up and taking your pelvis to the left side just a little bit, just so that we keep the spine in line with the shoulders. Take the right hand on the outside of the left knee and roll over towards the right side with the legs. Just the legs. Keep the shoulders grounded to the floor. Firmly grounded to the floor. Turning the gaze towards the left side, looking out towards the middle finger of the left hand. That's it, one smooth movement. Try to keep the knees together and keep the feet down on the floor. Feet out, spreading, slightly active. Okay, bringing the legs to the center. And then shift your pelvis to the right side so that you align the pelvis with the spine. Bring your feet as well a little bit towards the right side, and then roll the knees to the left side. Left hand on the outside of the right knee. Looking towards so our drishti, our gaze goes towards the right middle hand, right middle finger. So there's a sense of rotating the neck, but keeping the neck soft at the same time. We don't want to harden around the neck and the shoulders. Breathing through the pose. Okay, good. Now come back to the center. I'd like you to roll all the way over to the other side. So the opposite direction to where the legs are going. Just roll over and then come into a seated position from there. I'd like you to place the right leg in front of the left leg. Taking the box pose. So box pose, as the name suggests, bringing the legs into this, making this square. If you look down, you make a square, roughly square shape out of the positioning of the thighs in relation to the shins. Okay, draw the buttocks out just a little bit. I find that helps just to keep the orientation of the pelvis running forwards. We interlock the fingers nice and closely at the roots of the fingers. Expand the hands forwards and up. One smooth movement on the in-breath. Okay, next 3 breaths, we're going to emphasize lengthening through the spine. Okay, and then take your attention to your pelvis. I'd like you to tilt your pelvis forward so that we initiate the movement from the pelvis as we do with standing poses. Okay, so let your pelvis tilt forwards. Keep the arms extending up as much as you can. Keep that movement going as you come forwards. Ground the outer edges of the feet and keep the buttocks down on the floor. Hands all the way down. Okay, at some point that will cease to work because you'd have reached the end of the road with your movement there. Take another in-breath, just re-clarify the length of the spine again. And then I'd like you to bring the head down towards the floor. Okay, so you're just sort of melting forwards. So the spine rounds itself, that's fine. Head can go all the way down, partially down. You can support the head with the hands if you want. So finding a level of, intensity. You might move slightly out of your comfort zone in terms of the degree of stretch in the pelvis here. Just being aware of that and aware of what feels workable and what feels too much. So awareness of sensation serves us here. What's the sensation like? And with the hands, and we'll do this on both sides. Once we've changed the leg position as well. So we're just going to walk the hands around in a half moon, so like a semicircle. So take your hands away out to the right side. Keep the buttocks on the floor. Okay, and we'll come out to, so we're sort of diagonal, looking out diagonally from our hip center position. And then you're going to release over that way to the floor for a moment. Just making sure we're not lifting the buttocks up off the floor. Keep the buttocks grounded. Okay, lifting the spine up a little and the head, and then walking the hands the other way. So all the way around the half moon semicircle to the other side. Noticing the difference there. And then releasing down if you can on that side. You might notice that there's more pulling and more restriction on the right side of the body here. Through the pelvis, through the sides of the body, along the paraspinal muscles, all that side of the body can resist quite a bit this movement. Okay, bringing the hands and the head up and the hands around to the center. Walk the hands back towards you. And then we're going to take the hands all the way back, just behind the shoulders, and lean back onto the hands and reverse the shape of the spine. So this time coming into extension of the spine, raising the chest. Make sure your hands are really grounded down here. So wrists supporting and lifting out of the hands, but the hands on the ground. If you like, you can change your leg position So I do a little variation here is to bring the feet closer together and take the knees wider apart. But it only really works if the knees come down on the floor, this variation, okay? So then from there, you're going to lift up the pelvis. So the knees come down and then we'll lift up the pelvis. Opening the front line of the body, midline from the navel, pubic bone, all the way through to the throat. We're going to extend the chin forwards and take the head gently back to continue that movement. Gently back to where you fully want to take it, not all the way back if you don't want to. Keep on drawing the energy up by pressing the hands down. Keep on lifting the pelvis. That's good. It's important not to come halfway here if you've got the legs down, to bring yourself all the way up. As I say, bringing the chin forwards, you can sweep the head back, but lengthening the front of the neck. And bring the head forwards first, and then bring the pelvis down. Very good. Great. Okay, we're going to swap the leg position over now. So left leg forwards. Let's make that little adjustment again with the buttocks, drawing them back. And they're going to interlock the fingers closely at the wrists. So pressing the hands in the roots, extending forwards and sweeping up. 4 breaths, just focusing on lengthening the spine from the pelvis. As the pelvis drops down, the spine lengthens. It's an impressive image of Saskia there. Silhouette against the sky. It's very good. Okay, then we're going to, again, so pay attention to the pelvic movement. So we want to tilt the pelvis forwards. Okay, let the movement come from the pelvis, rolling over the top of the thigh bones, hands down. Just really clarify the length in your spine once again. And then bring the head down. So you walk the hands forwards. And we find a position where we can, just stepping out of our comfort zone a little bit here. There'll be some stretching felt in the hips, different for everybody, of course. We just sit and rest in the experience of the pose, whatever that is, and keeping the breath alive. So the breath is what feeds the posture. Now we're going to walk our hands around to the right side. So we come in this half moon, semicircle movement. So the heart is sort of in line with the big toe, and then releasing down again. Okay, lifting the head and chest up a little, walking the hands around, half moon, semicircle position, all the way around to the other side. And just rotating the trunk a little bit more if you can, so that the chest is leveling itself with the floor. So we don't come into this too twisted, okay? So it's a lateral movement for sure, and there'll be some twisting, but we try to just line the trunk up a little bit more with the floor, and then walk the hands out, head down. Noticing how that affects the side of the body through the hip, through the paraspinal area. latissimus dorsi, the large muscles on the sides of the back of the body, the lateral muscles, connecting to the spine. Okay, bringing the hands around again to the center. From the center, walk the hands back towards you. Lift the head and trunk up. Taking the hands again behind us. Widening the knees and bringing the feet closer together. And in towards the pelvis as well. Okay, so they come closer together, but in towards the pelvis. And then grounding the legs. Roll the pelvis up. So you're lifting the pubic bone upwards, pressing away from the floor with the hands. And then if you wish, you can draw the chin forwards and roll the head back. So there's a sense of continuity, of extension through the spinal column. Yeah. That's good. Keep the energy in the pose just a little bit longer. So remember, in order to lift the pelvis, we need the knees and the shins to come down on the floor. If that doesn't happen, then just keep the pelvis down. Excellent, good. And bring the pelvis down. Take the hands in front of you and then roll over to the forward position like this, coming into the all fours position, kneeling, hands forwards. It's a little a vinyasa, but it's not really quite a vinyasa technically. So from here, 5 times we're going to do the cat-cow work, lifting the spine up, exhaling, inhaling, reversing the shape of the spine. Pelvis tucks in, chin tucks in, spine lifts up. Engaging all of the spinal column on the breath. Inhaling, lifting the head, exhaling. Next time we exhale, we're going to bring the knee, left knee towards the chin. Okay, and then we're going to extend the leg back and bring the chest and head forwards. That's it. So, exhaling, bringing the knee under, inhaling, extending the leg back. That's it. Once again. Very good. 2 more times on this side. Extending all the way back, reaching back all the way through both sides of the leg, both sides of the foot. Once again. Okay, swap onto the other side. Same movement. Two more times. Okay, resting the knees down, feet down, hands down for a moment. And then you extend back your left leg and extend forward your right arm. And just pause in the pose. So lifting the leg a bit higher than the pelvis, arm a bit higher than the shoulder. Pelvis balanced. Reaching out through the crown of the head the space in front of you. Palm of the hand, preferably turned inwards to the midline. Release down. Once again, but on the other side. In breath, reach forwards. Palm of the hand in. Leg slightly higher than the pelvis, arm higher than the shoulder. And down. Very good. Excellent. From here, we're going to reach out through the right arm, and then we're going to sweep the right arm under the left arm, coming into the quarter dog. So as you come underneath, palm of the hand faces up, and you drop down onto your right shoulder, supporting yourself with the left hand. So I quite like people to support themselves with the left hand, like a pillar. Okay. And just paying attention to the pelvis, so we don't drop the pelvis to one side. Get the pelvis centered. And just see if you can gently deepen the twist before fully resting down onto the right shoulder. Okay. From the thoracic region, not the lumbar region. Okay. It's quite an intense posture, this. Seems innocuous, but it's quite demanding for the thoracic region because it isolates really strongly the pelvis. So this means that the work comes into the thoracic region quite strongly compared to sitting poses even. Be aware of the breath or any tensions in the breath. If it seems a bit restricted, just try and relax around the area of tension in the breath. Okay, support yourself well with the left hand and draw your right arm through, and then change to the other side. One smooth movement, as little hesitation as possible to come into the posture. Again, before you fully rest down on the head and shoulders, see if you can really deepen the twist without compromising from the pelvis to get the pelvis balanced, feet apart. Okay. And then supporting yourself with the right arm as like a pillar. Okay, softening the neck because we can overwork sometimes turning the neck to try and look upwards. Just keep the neck fairly relaxed there. There's enough going on in the thoracic area. Breathing through the pose, especially where you feel resistance or tightness. Use the breath there to try and bring some more awareness into that area, more release through the breath. Good, very good. Nice practice. Very steady in the practice. Okay, bringing your arm through. And I'd like you to perhaps just sit back onto the heels, or if that doesn't really work, then just sit on the floor with the legs crossed. I'm going to practice a bit of Garudasana, but without the legs, so we can concentrate a bit more on the shoulders. And so any seated position will do, but I prefer to do this myself in from Virasana as a base. So extending the arms wide, so we draw space between the arm and the shoulder. Okay, so encouraging and opening in the joints. And then we're going to cross the arms over. So we're going to bring the right arm right up as high as we can over the left arm. Okay, and then we know the setup. I'm just really trying to clarify the instructions a bit. And then taking hold of the thumb, so left finger's pressing into the base of the thumb or the palm of the hand, and then turning the hand side on, so you looks like a shark fin. Okay. Now keep the spine lengthening upwards and the neck relaxed here. And then we're going to bring the elbows up. So we're going to slowly elevate the elbows away from the legs. And we feel that broadening at the base of the scapulars. And we're going to encourage that to the extent that we can manage it, because again, this just takes us out of our comfort zone. Okay. It's not a pose that's necessarily, doesn't feel kind to force it. And so there will be tightness there, but just find a point where you can work just slightly to one side of your comfort zone, okay? So as we're opening the base of the shoulder blades, we're not necessarily raising the shoulder blades up, so we want to keep the shoulder blades fairly grounded. It's broadening laterally that we're interested in. And encouraging the breath into the areas that feel tight. So the rhomboid area is classic. The base of the trapezius is classic for building up of tension. So we're working towards release, even though we're working quite strongly. Our aim is to release through the body, release from the nervous system. 4 more breaths here, so we can sustain this a little bit longer. All right, and then releasing and extending the arms out to the side. Again, find that sense of space in the shoulder joints. Okay, we're going to cross over the other way. So left over right. Okay, same setup position. Pressing down gently through the shins, pelvis down, lifting the elbows, keeping the shoulder blades down and broadening laterally. And just see how your body feels as you come into the pose. There's absolutely no need to make yourself feel really uncomfortable in the posture because it already offers enough challenge just in the basic setup. Right? So notice where your biting point is in the pose. Just bring awareness there, bring the breath there. Usually brings a very pleasurable after effect, this pose. It's one of those poses that's demanding to work in, but often gives a nice releasing sense afterwards. So you're working right into an area that doesn't get a lot of attention unless we specifically do this kind of upper body work. 3 more breaths. Remember to keep raising the elbows. Okay, and now we're going to release. I'm going to release and release, extend out to the side, palms facing forwards. Might make some circles there, I think, just to release the elbows and the shoulders. Okay, very good. So I'm going to slide the hands forwards, come into our favorite pose, downward facing dog. Grounding hands and feet, lifting pelvis, lengthening spine. Lengthening the neck. Seeing if you can draw the navel just a bit further away from the sternum, downwards.
Draw the pubic bone a little bit further away from the navel, upwards. So this pose does come into the category of arm balance in a way, although it's an inversion as well and other things. Okay, bringing your left heel in now. I'd like you to step your right foot forwards, taking a sort of 3/4 length stance, making tram lines from your feet. So right foot length forwards, left foot turned in. Okay, press down through your feet strongly, come up. I'm going to cut my head off in the video. Extend the arms out to the side and bring the hands together behind us. We're going to interlock the fingers behind us. Okay. And then we're going to draw the hands down towards the towards the coccyx. Okay. Hands down towards the coccyx. Shoulder blades rolling in towards the spine. So they're moving medially rather than laterally. And then you can really take your attention down to your feet and ground the legs through the feet. And then extend forwards, okay, rolling over the top of the thigh bone, keeping the trunk lengthening. Then begin to draw the hands up. So there's a downward movement, there's always an upward movement as well, lifting away from the body. And then we may decide to lower the chest towards the shin or not. It's up to you. Obviously a deeper version of the posture, obviously stronger in the back of the leg. The main thing is just to watch that you're not cutting the breath off. So just keep in touch with the breath. Calmly observing what happens to the breath. If you lose it in the breath, then it's best to just come out of the pose a little bit rather than trying to keep on doggedly moving into it and cutting the breath off. So let the breath be fairly relaxed, but engaged. Okay, release the hands and take them down to the floor in front of you, under the shoulders. Step the front foot back, come into downward facing dog again. Good. Okay, and then we're going to change the other side. So right heel in, left foot forwards. Press down through the front foot, keep the spine long. Up you come. Broaden the hands out, arms out, and then once again, just interlock the fingers as before. Okay, we draw the arms down, so the energy goes down through the arms, through the hands towards the coccyx first, and then we tip forwards and we raise the hands away from the coccyx upwards. Okay, and you've got a choice as to how deeply you go into the pose, it's up to you. Stay parallel to the floor if you want, you can extend yourself into the posture. Trying to lengthen both sides of the body as we come down here. So we're bringing the trunk with us via the pelvis and then through the spine. If you need to release the front knee a little bit, release the front knee. Just find your working point. Okay. 2 more breaths. Release the hands down to the floor now, just as before, in front of the shoulders. Step back into downward facing dog again. And we see if we can perhaps draw the heels down a little bit more towards the floor, even as we lift the pelvis higher. Maybe we feel a bit closer to the floor through the feet.
Good. Good. Okay, so from the downward facing dog pose, we're going to shift into the high plank. So we're shifting the weight forwards, lowering the pelvis down, keeping the arms long, extending. Okay, just avoid sagging the spine down. So probably need to keep the pubic bone lifting in and some tone in the abdominal area. Okay, so really trying to avoid that sagging into the lumbar. It's uncomfortable. Pressing back into downward facing dog once again. Always feels like a relief to come into downward facing dog. Just doing that. Once again, coming into the high plank. So be aware of the legs, keep the legs extending back to the heels, thighs engaged. So what this posture does is it integrates the length of the body. Everything to do with the core, to do with the spine, incorporated. Okay, lower the knees down. I'd like you to come into some version or other of child pose. Even keeping the arms forwards if you want to. Just release back. Head down for a moment. Just practice for the next 15 breaths, disconnecting from the active part of the practice. Still point within the practice. Just being aware of the breath, being aware of the sensations in the body, how they might have changed from the start of the practice. Okay, if you come up into all fours for a moment, very good. And then we're going to extend our left leg back. So we're setting up for Vaisisthasana. Vaisisthasana, the side plank pose. And then position your hand just in line with your shoulder in front. Okay, I'm going to turn onto the side like this. Okay. Two options here. You know, just stay here with the lower leg down on the floor, the knee supporting the pose. Okay, or if you want, you can bring that foot and place it on top of the other one. So bring the right foot on top of the left foot and come into the more classical form of Vaisisthasana. Okay. So imagine your body between panes of glass. Looking up. It's a powerful pose, this one. It involves a lot of work from the lateral parts of the trunk to maintain the lift, engagement in the practice. Keep the legs engaged as well. Very good. Release the knee down to the floor. So it's a good way to come out of the pose is to release the knee down first and then take the hands in front of the shoulders. Okay. And we'll practice on the other side. So I'm just going to let you practice at your own rhythm. Next minute. Okay, so we have, in this case, the left knee down, right leg extended back. Sensation of being between two panes of glass. lifting up. So the whole emphasis of this pose and pose is like a lifting up, moving from the ground up. So it's energetic, dynamic. Okay, bring the knee down and then back onto all fours for a moment. Okay, we can sit down now and just extend our legs out in front of us for a moment. Just slipping the, as it were, slipping the buttocks backwards so the pelvis gently orientates itself forwards. And then you can place either your fingertips or your palms down, it depends upon the length of your arms, to the floor, extending through the legs. Okay, you're going to reach up through the crown of the head, bring the chin forwards and tuck the chin in and look down towards the pubic region. So this is the classical Dandasana pose. Engaging through the Mula Bandha, engaging through Pada Bandha, Hasta Bandha, and the breath. Great, okay. It's quite an intense practice in its own way. We're going to come into the reverse plank pose now. Two versions of this. One is slightly easier, the other one's more classical and more demanding. So with the knees bent and the feet on the floor, you bring the hands behind the shoulders. Okay. And from there, you would just lift up. So you make the reverse tabletop. Okay, and if you want to go a step further, then feel free to extend the legs out and press the feet to the floor and lift the pelvis from there, coming to the more classical plank pose. Okay, head drawing back as before, chin forwards, extending the head back. Okay, releasing down. So you just let if you'd like to make a sort of diamond shape out of your legs by bringing the soles of the feet together. Okay. And then slide the hands down towards the ankles and take the feet maybe as well. And just lengthen through the spine for a few breaths. So we draw the crown of the head up. Excuse me. Breath activates the spine. In breath, lengthen. Out breath, descending. But the spine remains long initially. And then if you choose to, you can then let the head come down and elbows go wide. So you're bringing the chin down towards the heel. You don't have to pull yourself into this, of course. We're just going to let this be a passive pose, okay? So chin or forehead down towards the heels. And there we will just abide for 10 breaths, just observing the breath, feeling the body. I'm just saying, over the course of the next 10 breaths, if you can gradually let go of any muscular effort to sustain this posture. So just letting go more deeply. And let go of breathing as well. Let's let the body breathe. You come up gently and just take your time if you would like to set yourself up into a sitting posture now. We'll practice a little bit of calm writing or shamatha practice, focused on the breath. So the quality of the breath is cleansing and refreshing. Just like the yoga practice itself, just a continuation of that intention. So the breath has an effect of cooling us down, grounding the awareness. Giving the mind a chance to step out of that mode of hyperactivity or overactivity. So we create a sense of space within the mind, as we've just done with our practice of yoga through the body. So the breath is cooling and cleansing, calming, gently liberating us from whatever it is we're preoccupied with. We know that these things, whatever they are, however important they seem to be, however solid they seem to be, are going to change one way or another. So we just let that reality be there, mindfully observing how we're changing in obvious ways and more subtle ways. Don't have to do anything with it other than just appreciate just dwell in. We can use the breath here if we want to. We can just sit with an open awareness without a distinct point of focus, just aware of what arises in our experience. Whichever seems more useful to you. And this awareness, if it's truly awareness, is always a kindly awareness. It's always not forcing itself upon us. And it's awareness that has the deepest interests of the most important things in us, in it. So feel free to carry on practicing as you wish, or to stop the practice if you want to. Thank you very much, everybody. See you soon.